everyone. Thank you for joining in our live talk. Just want to say welcome to the Montessori Association's Malaysia's Alumni Talk. And joining us for today, my name is Angelo, and with me here, Sarah, who will be your speakers for this lovely Sunday. And today's topic will be healthy relationships, friends, and family. So that will be our big topic. But before I go on, I just want to say please do like and share this video if you find the topic interesting. So it's live right now. And also, please subscribe to MAM 2021 in YouTube so that you can keep up to date for all these live talks that happens in Sundays. So before I go on, maybe Sarah, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. My name is Sarah Farhana. Um, a little bit about myself. I'm just waiting to graduate and step into the world of adulting. Uh, and as for my Montessori experience, I don't remember much, but I'm pretty sure I have picked up quite a few things from my learning years in Montessori education. Yeah, that's about it. What about you, Angelo?
Yeah. Me and Sarah, I actually started in Montessori. I think maybe a decade ago. We were working in the same place, work part time in
Mm,
Sri Kayangan Montessori. But yeah, I did a bit of admin work, so that's how me and Sarah know each other through Puan Aisha. And also, yeah, Montessori methodology. When I was young, that was what I was taught. A lot of independent work. They always teach kids to do things, practical hands-on experience, and also that have encouraged us to independent thinking. So, with today's topic, we're going to be sharing our perspectives. I'm not into adulting yet because I'm already too late for that. I'm already in my late 20s, so I'm going to be sharing my perspective with also, what has Montessori have give that impact in our lives. So yeah, that's a bit of introduction about myself. But yes, I am not Malaysian. I'm actually from Philippines, so a bit different culture that I'm actually still learning, and also to share from my point of view as well as a Filipino. So yeah, I think that's about it. Let's get on with our topic about healthy relationships. So I'm pretty sure we have different perspectives, and me and Sarah, we're not experts on the field, or we do everything correctly, or we know it. But what we can do is we share our thoughts from our different age groups and also culture. So, Sarah, how do you define healthy relationship from your end?
so to me, the my perspective of a health sorry no my definition of a healthy relationship, it has all the necessary elements that it should have, things like love and respect. Like respect goes two ways. But do we really know what that is like? I feel like it's very on the surface. And right now I'm 22, and I feel like I've definitely grown up, but my eyes have opened up, and that has led me to learning a lot about myself and others, in terms of like relationships with friends and families. So something I can share is that as a young adult, one of the things that I realized is that when you truly love someone, whether it's your friend or your family member, um, it takes you to accept them as they are. And to be honest, that in itself is kind of a challenge to me, especially for in my recent years, because I can be a bit stubborn, but that's what it takes to have a healthy relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that too, Sarah. But I like how you mentioned shallow, uh, kind of experience in a relationship. Maybe you can share more about that. Is it what you mean by shallow? That the good feeling of a relationship when you're with your friends or family, but you never really go deeper. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah. If you just ask someone, like how you asked me, how do you define a relationship? And
Yep.
then I just said, oh, it just takes love and respect. But it's a lot, you have to go a lot deeper into that to build a healthy relationship. Because you can't, you have to be in the middle. You cannot, you have to be careful of not neglecting, you
Mhm.
know,
Yep.
because the relationship also takes emotional support and things like that, which we will get into later into the discussion.
Yeah, I agree. And when you
Mm.
also said that, of course, I can also be stubborn too, and we make mistakes. So there's a lot of trial and error, a lot of
Yeah.
growth, making um, experiences, learning experiences from the mistakes that you make in a relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
overall trying to make it work. I think that's a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to physical health, of course, when we're exercising, we get to have some injuries time to time and stretch our muscles. And that's from there. You make those stairs, you actually get stronger, and it's constant work. And that's also what I want to bring up of how I defined a relationship. It is constant work, but also requires a lot of constant feedback. So it can be shallow, like we always define acquaintances versus friends. So acquaintances is someone you just meet casually in work or when you're out. But friends is a bit more. You have a similar interest, a similar experience, and for families, you share a common bond of course, growing up
Mm-hmm.
together, or blood bond. So that's the difference. You don't really give constant feedback to acquaintances, when you meet them. Of course, that will be awkward. But for friendship and for family, it should be happening all the time. Emotional support, or what you're feeling, you should always be keeping each other up to date. And that's how the work starts, right? That's how you develop a relationship. So I feel that most friendships or most family relationships, you're always walking on eggshells because you don't want to offend them. And then
Mm-hmm.
you will tell yourself that, oh, if I give this feedback, I know that my friend of mine hates it if I speak about this thing, or I know when my family is sensitive on some things or some events. But of course, you don't sweep it under the rug. You need to give each other that type of feedback. And that leads to my second point also, about understanding those feedback and having without judgment. So, like, I think going back to your point of, not accepting or accepting how you are, it goes both ways, right? They should accept who you are, but you should accept your family as, or friends of how they behave.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think, going back to your point of being stubborn again, it really takes a lot of work from both ends. And if you don't know the middle ground, then it's hard to work it out, and that's how most relationships get sour.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what do you think of that definition from my end?
Yeah, I think that's good. Very, uh, very like, how do you say, like detailed, because it's good that you know differentiate how relationships are in different contexts. You know, it can be different in within family, and then
Mhm.
within friendship, and then in something else. You know.
Yeah. So in the results of that, it's different. And what is the result out of that? Like us people from Montessori, we learn a lot of that in childhood. So that experience will be brought over as a result of where we are today. And for yourself, you're graduated, you're looking for a job, and for myself, I'm currently working in a corporate environment. So there's always a result based on experiences, and family and friends are the experience. So there should always be a result or growth based on that. So it can't always be stagnant. If you know a relationship is going toxic, you can't let it linger, and just be okay with it in the fear of losing that person.
Mm-hmm.
So my last point for defining a healthy relationship is having a sense of purpose. Just like us, in our call today, we have a sense of purpose to give our perspective of relationships
Mm-hmm.
and from our background. But in making this relationship with friends and family, what is the purpose? Is it out of obligation because you know each other for so long, or your friends have something on you, or that you have to continue
I don't
having
think
this
that
type of
feels like
friendship?
a friendship anymore.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah. So it's an obligation.
yeah,
So I think that is leading on to our next point of what is important in relationships. uh,
yeah. So earlier, when I mentioned that love and respect is important in relationships, there's also the the notion of trust. It's a
yep.
pretty big thing in relationships. To gain trust and to provide trust for the other party. That's what it takes to build like a healthy relationship. Um, but it can go like a little bit different depending whether it's within a familial context, and
Hmm.
then whether it's um, like in a friendship kind of situation, because in families it's kind of natural, like the trust is already there, trust, because no, sorry, no. What I mean to say is it's natural in a friendship because as you build your friendship, you also build your trust, because that's
Yep.
how that's how you recognize them as someone that you can turn to, someone that you can share personal things, and knowing that you can trust them to like keep that kind of information. But then in a family, the trust is it's like practiced in a different way, because and it can also what I mean is that it can be kind of abused, because
Hmm.
um I'm pretty sure anyone has heard this in any, I don't know, any time of their life. They've probably heard something like, oh, I am your blah blah blah, so you can trust me. I'm your this that, I'm your brother,
Hmm.
parent, so you have to trust me. But then, can you really, like, they're the ones telling you that, but can you really? You have to ask yourself. So that's what I mean. Like, trust within families can be kind of toxic, and then it can lead to like someone stepping over your boundaries and such. And then this is the kind of thing that I want to get into later on.
Yeah. I believe in our families, trust is a default thing that you should have.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, speaking, from my perspective in my family, I'm the eldest in the family, so I have two sisters and a brother. So of course, when it comes to sharing things that is going on with our lives, we have this sense of trust of siblings, to share things from one another. And of course, when we share these things, it's given in confidence, that for us to understand and learn from one another. That's one thing for family, but for friends, it's different because you're in different stages in life. So some of them may be mature with you, some of them are emotionally mature and some of them are not. So there are opportunities where you share a few things, and then out of nowhere it's shared, to other people that is outside your circle. And then you have those moments of that you lose trust in someone. Whereby in family, it's a safe zone. This is our bond, but that can also be compromised within the family. And when you lose that trust, it's fine, your family anyway, and you forgive that easily in a family. But when it comes to friends, from my perspective, once trust is once or twice that it's slowly starting to be challenged, then that's a part where I tell myself that, okay, maybe uh, it's either am I the problem, maybe that's a self-reflection to yourself, or it's the person that you're with, that you don't have that trust. So yeah, in that point, in a relationship, you need to build that. But of course, there are a lot of opportunities that you can see if those if that trust is actually working or not.
Mm, yeah. Um, I get it. I get what you mean. I feel like I said, that trust is a very important aspect in a relationship, because within a relationship, whether it's your friends or your family, these are the people that you feel that you're most vulnerable with them. So
Yeah,
that's why you feel that you can open up to them, and you see them as like a trusting figure, you
yeah,
know? And then, like, yeah, within a healthy relationship, it's a good sign that, if you feel comfortable enough to share things with them.
yeah. It's about being vulnerable, being open.
Mm.
So I think that's the foundation of any relationship. Whether it's a family or a friend, that trust must always be kept, and with a purpose that it should not always be one-sided. So you also have to admit to yourself and to myself, when I break someone's trust, there are consequences to it.
Mm.
And I think from your end, as the person who breaks the trust, you need to put an effort, and first admit to that, because like I said, how we define a relationship, it takes a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to stress at this point to our listeners out there that if someone breaks your trust or you break someone's trust, that's the end of the relationship. So we're not saying it that way, but it's about being aware of that type of behavior if it's too toxic already.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're talking now, Sarah, about the challenges with trust, and maybe we can speak more about challenges in a relationship, when it comes to losing trust. So I think you and I, we've been preparing for this talk about relationships, and you mentioned something about emotional availability,
Mm.
which when I read it the first time, I define it as someone's available to be emotional, right? But maybe you can share more on this topic, for our listeners out there, because there's a lot
Mm.
of studies to it too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm very glad to share this, because it is something that not a lot of people talk about, especially in cultures such as this one, such as Southeast Asia. The Asian cultures are very, very much, I don't want to say backward, but they are. There's obviously a difference between that and then the Western mindset. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that this is a Western mindset. This is just it's something that's always been there. So
Hmm.
emotional availability, um, generally it refers to, like, it describes this, like, the ability to sustain emotional bonds in relationships.
Yeah.
And because it's pretty much like it's impossible to have a healthy relationship without the emotional connection.
Hmm.
um it takes one party to be emotionally available for the other party, for whatever situation you're in. For example, um someone, with like a friend or a family member, they need like emotional support from you or something. um and then okay, let's say it's a friend. They come to you for emotional support for
Yeah.
whatever they're dealing with, and then you, as a friend, you do feel obligated to, like, be there for them.
Hmm.
So that's what it is, like, um you're like a figure of emotional support for them. Yeah.
Right.
And then, but yeah, but it is a kind of a challenging thing. Not everyone can be emotionally available 24/7. Every second of the day is impossible, because everyone has their own have their own struggles to deal with. So if I'm like really stressed about something, and then my friend comes to me with a problem,
Hmm.
of course I cannot be 100% there. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have like that clear mindset like really be there for them. So it can be that is like one of the challenges in relationships for friends and family, I would say.
Do you think that it's more important in a family type of relationship or in a family setting to become emotionally available? Is it something that is supposed to be mandatory, or if, like what you said, if they're not there, they should at least communicate? Or what do you feel in that difference with friends?
Um, I think with friends, personally, I think with friends, it does feel more comfortable
Hmm.
because you can
Yep.
share anything with them. You can talk about anything with them. But with family, of course, there are some things that you won't feel comfortable talking about. Um, and then, like, because of that, it might not be easy to be emotionally available.
Right.
I don't think it's something that's uh very like talked about in Malaysian families in that
Mhm.
kind of context. Like I can tell you, my brothers watching this, if they hear me talking about this, I don't think they will understand. Like if out of nowhere I just sit down and be like, "Hi, I'm here for you. I'm emotionally available for you." Blah blah blah. They would just feel very weird about it, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think for, you know, speaking for males, it's not a thing. I think it's stigmatized as a sign of weakness, or you feel
Oh.
awkward if you start opening up and, just say that, open up about what you're feeling now. And then, we're supposed to be tough, and just go on with the day. And yeah, to tell you the truth, I also struggled with that growing up, in my early adulthood,
Mm,
just keeping things to yourself, not sharing things. I think the problem with some males, like, yeah, in romantic relationships, the girl can always tell everything to their partner. They'll just listen. But it should be both ways, right? It should be 50-50.
mm,
Or, I mean, you don't have to keep score. At least there are moments that you should be available to. So yeah, that's one thing that I understand from how you define emotional availability.
mm-hmm,
And being in a family also can be tough. I think for friends, since some friendships, they don't grow up with you, and they're just outside, from living with you. So it's a bit more comfortable to be yourself and share and get these emotions, because there's no obligation, because you chose to be friends, right? So there is a choice being made there. Whereby family, you're born to a family, right? I mean, of course, you don't have a, that much of a choice. I mean, that's another discussion, for you to stay or live with a family. But with friendships, there's always that unspoken agreement.
mm,
And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel that being in a friendship with anyone, for long, this can be romantic, or or platonic relationship. There should be moments, right, of being emotionally available.
yeah.
At least, like, of course, there are professional relationships too that you have to maintain. And with family, most importantly for family, I think you should also have moments of just checking in, right? And at least doing your part. But I think I don't want this message to be across to people who are listening, to say that, okay, for this month I need to ask how you are doing, emotionally. I've done my part. So if you're not
Mm,
sharing, then that's your fault. So yeah, I think it's just awareness on this topic, right? But yeah, I think when it comes to that, we have to set some boundaries too. And I think this happens more with families and friends. Your family is always concerned because they love you, right? So
mm-hmm.
there's a lot of intense love. So how do we set some healthy boundaries in this relationship? Before I share mine, maybe you can share yours first, Sarah. Since you're still in your early 20s and transitioning from from work life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not yeah, work life. Other
Mhm.
than that, it's uh friendships made in like your uni years. I feel like that's the most um I don't know how to explain this, but I feel like people, maybe your sister can understand what I'm saying, but
Hmm.
the kind of friendships that you make when you're in uni years and whatever, it's very very uh maybe I don't know how to say, but it's emotional. The emotion sense of it is very strong, because that's when you're like, your eyes are open, and then that's when you really learn how to maintain the friendship. And that's something that I learned recently, when I was 18, 19. um never knew what boundaries were I reached that age until I reached
Hmm.
that age,
Yeah.
and then around that time when I started making friends. And then there was one friend that I was getting close to, and then like till the point that we became best friends. And then your best friend, you share a lot of things, and then you're very close and blah blah blah, but sometimes it can be too much.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you cannot be emotionally available. There are moments when you can't just be uh at the kind of mindset that you've always been at. So it's important to like know what your boundaries are, and then um be brave enough to like communicate it won't be easy, of course not, because
Yeah.
you don't want them to feel like you don't like them. So yeah, it's important to know how to communicate your boundaries. And it goes the same for families too.
Hmm.
Like, the like if you're with your siblings, sometimes you hate them, sometimes you're okay with them. um yeah, it's important to set boundaries as well, to look out for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I do understand. It can be also draining, right? Mentally and
Mm.
emotionally draining if the other party, whereby it's your friend or family, uh, you know, puts too much out on you. And, like I mentioned in defining what a healthy relationship is, you're obliged to listen in or to carry that. And, it's a lack of awareness actually when it comes to friends. Like what you said, you have this best friend who will always, share things a lot with you. And then it's a bit too much to take in on a daily basis. I think once in every quarter something bad happens. That's what friends are for, right? You should help
Mm.
each other out. Or sometimes it happens every week, and you should be there for each other. But out of the intensity of whatever situation they're in, they tend to forget that they're crossing over boundaries. So I think from us, from the ones who are being affected by that, like the slides here say that, communication, right? You have to communicate that, hey, I'm also going through things too. I do understand, it's more about understanding without judgment that you're going through this, this painful or hard part of life. And we should have some boundaries to respect one another. And if they ever react that, oh, then you're not a good friend or a best friend because you don't understand me right now. But they weren't aware that they're doing this. It's a cycle. It's over and over again. And yeah, that does happen in some friendships that I can see and also have experience. But when it comes to family, that's a bit also constricted, right? It's just in
Mm.
in that thing that you should always there are no boundaries, right? When it comes to family, everything must be shared, right? So
Yeah.
it's a paradox when you're applying this thing. So yeah, I think that's actually what I want to share. I think you spoke some of the points already. That it's good to communicate. I think it's how you communicate.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean that, hey, you're sharing me another sob story about your problems at work. I don't want to hear it. You shouldn't be like that, right? So you
Mm.
should say that, okay, let's listen to it, and I'll share you mine. So if you're the one allowing, your partner or your friend or family to take control of the conversation about their problems, and then you're letting, you're not putting a boundary at all. So I think that's my point to add to this, as one example.
Yeah. I mean, communication is also one of the big, uh, things that you should work on. One of the big things that make up a relationship.
Yep.
Because how can you have one if you don't communicate, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I can share on this topic. I can share um, one way you can communicate the boundary. Like you said, it's about how you communicate it.
Yeah.
How you go about it. Because you don't wanna make it sound like you're really putting up this boundary, like you're putting up this wall so that they can never ever get to you, so that they can never come to you again. But it's yeah, that's you might not want how do I say this? That's not how you want to put it out there, but to them, that's how they will take it in. There could be some people who are they will be a bit taken aback by it. So I think one way you can communicate to the other party is to make sure that the words that you're using and then how you communicate, to make sure that it sounds loving to you and to the
Yeah.
other person, because that reassures them that you're okay. It's just that you're asking for them to just back off a bit. So you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
you can say something like, maybe if you're in a conversation with them and then it's not going well, like you don't feel like you don't feel good in that conversation. You feel like maybe someone's gonna get hurt. Maybe you feel like, okay, I'm feeling a bit like agitated. I might say something that's gonna hurt the other person. You can say like, okay, I want to step away from the conversation. I feel like we're talking on emotions, and I might say something that I will regret. So I'm going to step away, and then later on we can continue this when we've both calmed down a bit. You know?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's one way of doing it. I think from my end, um, an opposite of walking away, it's confronting whatever that needs to be, you know, fixed at that moment. Because I feel that, that's also one thing of just keeping it in. And then what I'm worried about with walking away is that you may tend to just overlook. And I think the whole point of walking away from your perspective is, I see that you don't want to say hurtful words at that moment because you're feeling emotional, right? And the problem with that, I believe, with different people have different ways of approaching things. So for my end is to confront and make sure that that thing is settled now and then. But yet again, I think going back to your point, I think people are in different stages, right? You have to
Yeah.
use certain words in order to get your message across. But I mean, regardless of how you do it, if if to those who are actually non-confrontational and take some time to actually reassess, which is good in my opinion, and some people who are confrontational, like from my end, the whole purpose is to maintain the relationship
Mm.
and make sure that there are no holes in the boat, right? To make it
Mm.
sink, right? The friendship sink. So I think this point here is making sure that like a sense of purpose once again, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
having a healthy relationship is making sure you communicate these types of problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Sarah, we spoke a lot of good points to that, and one of our next point, which is I am more interested to learn about from your end. Like I said, all these swept under the rug problems and challenges, and some of them are so intense and so uh, traumatizing, right? And it can affect your growth and
Mm-hmm.
also in friends and family. So the next topic we're gonna bring up here is generational trauma. So yeah, maybe Sarah, you can share more about this because we tried to Google some
Yeah.
studies in Asia, but we can't find any.
Yeah. So this was coming from one of our prior one of our discussions prior to this talk, we were just thinking about how, like, after discussing everything else, we were thinking about how our relationship with family can affect our relationship with friends.
Hmm.
You know, even though
Yeah.
they're two separate things, it can kind of affect one another. And then and then yeah, so Angelo brought that up. He brought up the question, and then I was thinking about it. I was like, hey, I know something about this. um so this is like a term that I don't think anyone, not a lot of people have discussed it. Even and when I mean that they haven't discussed it, they really haven't. Like, I was looking up articles, I was looking up journal articles, and there's really nothing much that anyone has discussed about, because it's kind of a new thing, and
Hmm.
it's like something that I feel like the our generations have recognized only now, you know. So generational trauma, it it's like the evidence of psychological effects of trauma that is being passed down through generations in families.
Hmm.
So for example, let's say that you you have a problem in your family, as in maybe okay, I'm gonna get very personal right now.
Yeah,
uh
yeah, sure.
so I
Any
yeah
example?
yeah I recently realized that I you know the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, yeah.
So obviously I do take after my parents, but then I recently realized that there are certain characteristics and behaviors that I took from them. I'm not gonna say it, but
Hmm.
it has affected my relationships with other people, with other friends, you know. And
Yeah,
then when I realized it, it was like, wow. It was like I just, and my eyes opened again. And
yeah.
that's something, because it affects your relationships with friends, and it can also affect your relationship with your family.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is that it can affect your relationship with your younger siblings,
Hmm.
or it can affect your relationship with your future spouse or future children.
Hmm.
So, because, do you see what I'm getting at? It's like a cycle. It's gonna
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
going on and on and on. You know, the whatever problem I'm having right now with my parents, they probably had it with their parents, and then my grandparents probably had it with their parents. So
Hmm.
that's because it's a cycle. And because I recognized it, I want to do something about it, so that I don't carry it down to the generation after me, you know. So um yeah, this is something that's not very talked about now, but especially here in Malaysia, of course not. Asian parenting, but
Yeah, yeah.
uh, Angelo mentioned earlier when we were discussing that there is some like there is a little bit of light being shed on. Like you mentioned, there were some films.
Yeah,
I
yeah. There's
think called the
Disney
recent
film,
Australia
yeah,
one.
Turning Red. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think a lot of in Western countries are producing, and the Michelle Yeoh film.
yeah,
Hopefully, it's more
yeah. They
popular than
really touch on
Everything
the
Everywhere All at Once.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
talk about mother-daughter relationships, but I can apply to
yeah.
any.
Yeah. So I think if you can look in the wait, do you want to share the links? We found a few links on emotional unavailability and generational trauma. If anyone's
Yeah,
interested to
yeah. I
know
think we
more
can share
about,
that in the video links below.
yeah,
So at least for those who are interested, they can read
yeah,
more about that. So this is something that is being already uh, studied, and there are more information out there that you can check out. So it's good,
or you
Sarah,
can
that
just
you
watch
actually
the
bought some.
movies.
Yeah, awareness on
Yeah.
this. Yeah, and watching the movie is a good way to, it's an example. The movies are an example of
Mm.
how generational trauma, because like children, we're sponges, right? We learn everything growing up, and of course our parents. In the defense of our parents, as I'm growing older, I get to understand them. Of course, it is very challenging and it's very hard to
Yeah.
teach kids, and I know they can't have it perfect all the way, and to acknowledge certain things about themselves and also about myself that is not great. It's of course, in an Asian context, yeah, it's a sign of weakness. And and you get questioned. You should not be a parent in the first place if you're not 100% perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are certain aspects that will carry on with the family. So in Asian families, we always look into the physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
How good they look. They got their eyes from their mom, their
Mm.
height from their dad, and they also get the what? Oh, he's wealthy because the dad is smart. And then we look into the shallow things, and they can say for a fact that yeah, because their parents are like this, that's why they're like that. And then if they're bad kids, oh, because the parents are bad or they're not there, right? So it's easy to make examples like that. But how come, for trauma, there is no study to it because no one wants to talk about it, right? And it's not physical. There is no
You bring it
evidence.
up, they will just tell you to shut
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Everyone will be defensive. Everything will be shut down mode because there's no such thing as trauma in our
Mhm.
family. Everyone's okay. The moment you talk about it, that's a problem. So yeah, I think in a relationship, that is what I call is a big consequence if if you don't maintain a relationship, in a good purpose, right? You're just maintaining it for the sake of doing it because you're obliged or you have no
Mhm.
boundaries. So yeah, I wish we can speak more about this topic, but like what Sarah said, we'll share some links. But yeah, it's a good way of awareness for ourselves, right? It's always an awareness, and sometimes you might think that, oh, I'm losing so many friends, or I'm having bad things with my family. What's going on? And then perhaps it's something that may be related to generational trauma. There's actually different words for transgenerational and
Yeah.
intergenerational. So there, it's like we said, it's a new study, so you can check that out. But we do encourage those who are listening, if you're having challenges in relationship, or you're facing a lot of it's taking a toll in your well-being, please seek out for a health professional. There's a lot of help out there. And if your friends or families are, I'm not saying that this applies for all, Sarah and I, we are grateful and appreciative of our friends and family who are here to support us, but not everyone has the same sort of blessing, and that is a fact. So please reach out for professional help. There's a lot of organizations out there. Maybe this can also be shared in our links to reach out. And yeah, before we wrap up, I think Sarah, we should bring up one last point, and that is well-being. So maybe you can take the last point.
Yeah. Hang on, yeah. All right. So, um, given everything that we've discussed,
Mm.
it's a lot of heavy, like it's a pretty heavy topic. Yeah, to be honest. Um, so because okay, I'm gonna try and like go back to everything and try and summarize
Yeah,
everything.
backtrack.
Yeah, backtrack. So we talked about. So first we talked about relationships, what's important in relationships,
Mhm.
and what includes in that is the the trust, the communication, and then there's also the idea of being emotionally available for your friend or your family, and then
Mhm.
also acknowledging and communicating boundaries, right? um so given all of that, it's it's a lot it's a lot to take, and it can be a very heavy challenge for you.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and also including what we talked about just now about generational trauma.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like friendship and family, it's okay to put yourself first and take care of your well-being. So I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but
No, no. I think it's important, right? You gotta be healthy to maintain a healthy relationship, right?
yeah. So
So
yeah,
yeah,
it's okay
no trouble
to
at all. Yeah, put
yeah,
yourself
it's
first.
okay to like distance yourself a bit, as long as you put in the time and effort to work on yourself and then
Yeah.
come back. Because yeah, Angelo, just now you were talking about walking away and not confronting. That's just not gonna help, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
true, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can put yourself first and walk away, but in the meantime work on it. Don't leave the thing hanging.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And yeah, thanks, Sarah. It takes a lot of courage to actually say that, to put yourself first. In an Asian society, we're collectivist, right? So we always have to think of the family first, then think about yourself later when you have the time,
Yeah.
or whenever it's convenient. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you're not healthy and you're just bitter and sour, and then things are just becoming, the old word again, obligation, right? And then it gets heavier and heavier. So yeah, bringing it back, because as much as we're sharing perspectives of me and Sarah, and hopefully they're helpful to the people who are in this, live talk, they can see some perspectives and also see some examples that work for us, and maybe it may have worked with you or not. You can ask us questions. We'll get to our Q&A session, right? And give us your comments. We always like to hear. For me, I like opposing views because it challenges me. So me and Sarah can answer that. But
Mm.
yeah, before we get into Q&A, just another reminder: if it's really challenging, please do seek help from professionals. Of course, like confrontation, there's always third party, right?
Mm.
For those you trust, if you don't know where to find these resources, of course, there's a lot on the internet, but I will speak to the organizers of the call, maybe to share organizations that they can reach out to, because yeah, it is tough for our Asian society. It's still very new, right, Sarah? So when you go to your friends or family, hey, let's talk about generational trauma, or let's talk about our problems that you've done. Everyone's getting defensive and they go away. So maybe we need a bit more help, right? And not through just one sit through of this call. We'll be professionals,
And
masters of the relationship. So
we're not
always,
professionals, don't take our word for it.
yeah, we're still learning, but I think one thing to say for sure, right, Sarah, we're aware that
Yeah.
there is a lot of resources, there is a lot of examples that we can read online, and we are putting in the work, right? We're putting in the work and getting there.
Mm.
So now it's already 3:20. We have another 10 minutes left. So we just love to hear some maybe comments or any questions. So let's look into our comment sections if anyone here is listening here. Maybe just give it a minute or two. Right? Okay, I don't see any questions, but yeah, feel free to directly message the YouTube channel or leave comments. Yeah, please again share this video and like, and of course, subscribe. Maybe you'll have more talks in the future. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I just want to say thank you again to MAM for giving this opportunity, this space for me and Sarah to speak about this great topic. And also, I want to give a lot of credit to my family and friends who are listening. And overall, I think if I reflect on myself, it's been a great journey, learning, and of course, with a background Montessori, it has definitely helped me out a lot. And of course, speaking about this topic, my examples, my relationship with my mother and father and my siblings, I can give this as a testament, and people can approach me and learn more about it and how I can maintain these relationships. So yeah, I have to give them credit. And also, thanks again to the organizers of this call. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you, Sarah, to close our session.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us on our alumni talk. And also thank you to sorry, what is the name? Montessori Association Malaysia for giving us the opportunity to speak. This was actually very out of the blue for me, but it's nice to share what I know,
Yeah,
like about generational trauma and emotional availability, because I know that it's not very talked about. I'm I'm glad. I'm very more than glad to just share it with anyone who's listening. Um, yeah, and if you can take anything from this talk, that's amazing. That's good. That's great. Yeah. So yeah. So this is Sarah Farhana and Angelo Louisse signing off from Montessori Association Malaysia. Please stay safe and healthy. Take care, everyone. Bye.
yeah. Thank you too, Sarah. It was fun. Take care,
Yeah.
everyone. Bye.